But, yeah, thank you very much for having us at your webinar series today. And before Norman will continue with the more practical and research-related aspect of our work, I'm going to do a little bit of scene setting to really put our project in context, and in particular our journey into sort of informality and energy. And the project that we will be talking about today is really the result of a cluster of different UK-funded applied research projects that Federico and I have engaged in the past few years, and they all focus on energy transitions in South Africa, and in particularly the conversions of a low-carbon transition alongside that of an energy access transition. And it all started with a Newton Fund grant that was focused on urban energy transformations a few years ago. Federico and I worked together with other partners to investigate the co-design of energy services provision pathways and their governance. So really quite at a higher level, and really the issue of informality stood out for us as an issue of further work. And based on this project, we then applied for funding from the British Academy to focus specifically on informal settlements and mini-grids. And that resulted in the project that we're actually presenting on today, and that is called Experimenting with Data-Driven Approaches to Wellbeing in Off-Grid Informal Urban Settings. And our project really unites engineers and social scientists through our main project activity, which is an intervention, so pilot project that brings mini-grids to small informal settlement in Cape Town that is currently unelectrified. And so this pilot mini-grid is done in a township called Qandu Qandu. And so we really, in our project, focuses on this link between well-being and the provision of renewable off-grid energy in informal settings. And really, this research follows this private sector turn almost in energy delivery for SDG 7, and to make sure that our research stays relevant, we have taken a partnership approach, working with the private sector to learn from their rolling out of a mini-grid pilot study in Qandu Qandu. And we're working with so our partner is called Zonka Energy, so that is a private sector partner. And we are also working with the 3 Energy Collective, which is a very innovative small South African company that focuses on mobile phone-based data collection and in particular in situations where the receiver of the information may not have a lot of airtime or data. And so our project has these detailed qualitative and quantitative data through surveys, through surveys, interviews, and this mobile phone data collection on this project. And also, I should not forget to mention that we're about to start a very exciting, almost new trajectory of this stream of work, which is made possible through the funding we received from the Newton Prize last year. And in this work, so following on from this realization that yes, electricity for lighting and basic appliances is really important, which is the focus of our ongoing project, but refrigeration is a key area that remains unaddressed, and it's a large gap in the provision of off-grid electricity, partly because of its electricity requirements, but also the appliances for that. So for this work, we also have an additional focus on gender and fridge-related entrepreneurship. So watch this space, and we're hoping maybe in a little while to be able to to say something more about this piece of work. And then before I hand you over to Norman, I would also like to re-emphasize the importance of the context of informality in which our projects operate, and stress that in the South African context, and that is what our case study is about, the South African Constitution stipulates the right to basic services, including electricity, but informality is throwing a spanner in the wheel of achieving that in the sense of those electrification strategies, because these electrification strategies often don't align with the very real context of informal settlements, for example, in relation to their upgrading, formalization, and/or relocation. So our work really sits in this in-between space where there's a political mandate to electrify and to provide universal services, but where the informal settlement is there, long-term plans may or may not have been made for removal, formalization, or relocation of the settlement, but still no formal or grid-tied electrification is planned. So I hope that this has given you a bit of context, and yeah, I'm keen to hand over now to Norman to really dig into the meat of this presentation.
Thank you. Thank you. How are you?
Yeah, we are well, Norman. You can also share your image if you want. It'd be nice to see your faces.
Sorry? Sorry?
Camera, if you want.
All right, all right. Can you hear me? Yeah, the camera.
Yes, we hear you well.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much, Jiska. Thank you so much for the introduction. Can you scroll? Can you scroll for me? I think. All right. Otherwise, all right, perfect. No, I don't want to repeat. I think Jiska has done justice, in terms of project description. So I don't want to, talk about it. Well covered. Yes, probably where I can talk about roles are. So we've got Exeter, UCT, Zonke, 3 Energy Collective. So the 3 institutions, which is UCT, Exeter, and 3 Energy Collective, are mainly focusing on collecting data, which is qualitative and quantitative in nature, while Zonke Energy has been working with informal settlement, particularly in providing off-grid energy to such communities. They've worked with a settlement called Mathebula before, during which we collaborated. So they go into settlement and do what they do most, which is about installing the mini grids, and we go in there as researchers to collect data and assess the impact of grid energy access on the well-being. All right, next, yeah, a little bit about Qandu Qandu, which is our study area. Qandu Qandu is one of many informal settlements that are located in town. So it is Kairika. It is about from Cape Town. So one of the major reasons that this community called Qandu Qandu is not having grid electricity, it is because of what you are seeing on the screen. I guess you can see, it is under like transmission line. There's like flooding. It's actually located on wetlands. So normally, especially during winter, when a rainfall comes, flooding, it becomes an issue, especially when the wetland is filled up. So these are the major reasons why they cannot be electrified. So as an option, they either have, so one of the many options is that they need to be relocated into a place which is suitable for human habitation. So hence, we can go and do a bit of study with this community simply because it is not on the radar of ESCOM, which is a public utility mandated to providing grid electricity nationwide. Probably to elaborate a little bit more, many of the residents, as it is very typical across South Africa, or South African informal settlement, there are, I think, unemployment rate is about 70%, and it's a youthful community. Very few people are actually qualifying for the so-called, old age grant, which is meant for those who are 60 years of age and above. How did this community come about, in terms of its history? Political drivers, influenced its establishment. So one of the politicians actually advocated that any vacant space, can be occupied by people who don't have, spaces. Then as a result of such a statement, political statement, people from around the neighboring formal area into Qandu Qandu and put up their structures. Next. And then in terms of services, services are offered water issue. They receive water from the city of Cape Town, which goes there on weekly basis. I think it goes there. The water tankers go there once a week, and they are called Mishengu. Mishengu is a company which provide electricity to informal settlement. So in this case, they provide the toilets and they clean the toilets once a week. All right, so in terms of the actual project activities, you can see the rings. The rings are actually the location points of the mini grids, that are installed by our partner, Zonke, as I've indicated already. And then the areas around are, called a green B, section. So the number of sections which are under a green point, section, so to say. So what we find is that people from Qandu Qandu, the informal settlement, normally access, electricity through illegal means from the areas around that are on the grid. I guess it is even more visible, as you can see on top, the green color indicates that the area definitely, it's a wetland. Yes, so what you are seeing now are our solar mini grids that have been installed by our partner, Zonke Energy. So far, they've completed all the required number of mini grids that are supposed to be implemented. They are implemented across 4 sections of Qandu Qandu. Each solar-powered mini grid provides electricity to about 16 households. That's the capacity of each mini grid power. So that is the progress so far, meaning that they've completed the number as per the funding. Yes, so in terms of the energy that is predominant in the area, as you can see, paraffin and gas. Yes, these are the the predominant energy sources in the area. However, as you can see, part of the energy mix is that electricity is also there. Ironically, this is an underestimate because most of the households are connected to electricity. But as you can understand, not everyone can admit, but through personal observation, almost everyone is connected. Even when, even as you move around, you see like cobwebs, you see like wiring, that are moving around, providing electricity to different, households that are connected from the surrounding areas that are on the grid. So hence you see, I guess you can wonder that the area, is not, it is not connected, nor it qualifies, to be legally connected. So the electricity access that is reflecting, on the numbers through illegal means. And then in terms of, the sense, at which people feel like, to be part of the community on either temporary or permanent basis, it varies with people. You have, on the one hand, people who have like, spent, a little bit of, money, on their houses or shacks. Such people foresee themselves staying, in the area for longer and longer. At the same time, it also depends on which part of the area, are people located. Those who are very close, to the wetland itself are actually at the receiving end of flooding. So such people, are, advocate for, I wouldn't say advocate, but they don't really see themselves staying there. Rather, they want to see government providing housing services elsewhere so that they can move into, such places. I guess what you are seeing, you can see a bit of, a sand. The area looks like this across. Definitely, as you see, it is just like that. And people are, like they say that it is not optional that they find themselves in Qandu Qandu. They just don't have any option. It's either they stay in Qandu Qandu or under the bridge. Yes, so as you can see, power lines over the shacks. This is one of the major reasons they cannot receive electricity. But as we're taking data, we are hearing like different voices. There are, people who are of the view that, they may, get electricity from government. And there are those who say that we know we cannot get, electricity. So as to, how true, these views are, it's something that I cannot tell. Because on the one hand, you definitely have people that are far away from the transmission lines, and you have those who, who are under the transmission lines. So this is one of the quotes that I got while, conducting interviews. So this lady, as per, her belief is that she can access, or rather she can have electricity from government, at the end of the day. But those who are under the transmission line, they cannot. So I guess, yeah, it is a matter of, given the criteria that the government, use, how, like, irrelevant are these opinions. So when I try to interrogate as to who told you that you are going to get this, because our understanding is that the area itself is not like, meant to be legally electrified by the public utility, then they indicate that the councillor or the community leaders are the one who are indicating that they can have electricity. Then in terms of challenges, I have on the one hand challenges that Zonke Energy, our partner, are going through or went through from the beginning of the project. So there has, been, sort of, slow take up in terms of people coming out, subscribing for the energy that, Zonke is providing. Then on the other, this was contributed mainly because, the time during which the installation occurred, it was, in December during festive seasons, where people were kind of, prioritizing, going back to their original places and see their families. Why do I say this? Most of the people, in the area are not really original from the Western Cape. They're from the Eastern Cape, which is many miles away. So they need to invest a little bit before they can, take a journey back into their original places. And then one of the key challenges they've indicated that they normally encounter, it's, moving in there using the crane to install the milligauss, milligauss power. I know for a fact, because the roads, actually there are literally like no roads, maybe they're just streets, if I can put it like that. one of the many services that they're crying for from the government is that the government should actually provide roads. So when they move in there with the crane to, set up the mini-grids, they find themselves tampering with the wiring, the legal connection wiring that, are hovering, around the area. As an alternative, they are to use different means. So in terms of challenges in the context of community, as I've alluded to, that only 2 major services are offered, meaning that they don't have, clinic, obviously. They rely from the clinics around. Jobs are an issue. They also cry about, police officers not, protecting them as they should. It's like their visibility is just not there. And then even electricity itself from the grid, they still want it, but because of that knowledge, amongst others, especially many are aware actually that they cannot receive electricity. So their last hope is mini-grid power, to which they are embracing. As you can see, I can have electricity from Zonke Energy, but if my neighbor does not have it, whenever his share burns, it can affect. It simply, indicates that they want electricity, for the entire community, because they are just, their life is intertwined. If Zonke can give everyone who is staying in Qandu Qandu a life to reduce theft, crime and robbery. So robbery and crime, robbery in particular and theft, it's predominant. It's one thing they are, worried about, especially that it is very dark. So the last, challenge, if I may say, it's, government, especially for those who are on the grid, are entitled for free basic electricity. Meaning that they are missing out on the opportunity. As much as they will be getting electricity from our partner or through our partner, what it means is that they are missing out on the subsidies that are meant for poor people. And who are those poor people? As per ESCOM, they are saying that whoever earns about $3,500, sorry, 3,500 rand a month, equivalent to $233 or 175 pounds, qualifies for free basic electricity. So almost, let me say more than 80% of the community qualify for that, but they are forfeiting the opportunity because they are not on the grid. As a result, then they have to pay for the services. However, let me emphasize this, however, big, emphasis, they find themselves spending a lot of money on like poor quality fuels, your paraffin, your wood fuel, and they can spend around 400 rand, equivalent to 26 dollar or 20 pounds a month, meaning that the packages that Zonke it brings into the area, which are in 3 like types. The basic one is outdoor lights and the chargers, the phone chargers, and the second one is radio chargers and outdoor lights, and the third one is TV, radio and chargers. They come at a lesser cost. And then I know there are those who are also into refrigerators, and Zonke providing that too, despite the few challenges they're going through in terms of resources. And then maybe before I come to this, let me indicate, in conclusion, that these are the data, that are like pre-intervention, but during, the actually, there are some of the households who are already, in the like Zonke subscription, meaning that they got light and TV. So there are benefits already, and as they speak, they are more than happy. They are saving like their hard end, little cash in terms of even mere charging, because they used to charge from elsewhere. Some would say that they would have, to spend about 70 rand a week through charging. And then now that they got access, clean access, they are able to save bucks. They are able to even apply, put their resume online, and yes, so they also wanna upgrade into higher packages. All in all, is that their well-being is it's starting to change, and they are only happy that they wish to upgrade into higher packages so that they can take full advantage of this clean electricity, so that they can cook and whatnot. I guess that's all I have prepared for you. And then in terms of more information or about our project, you can visit our website on the screen, our social media. For your attention. That's all I have for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Norman. So now we pass on to Federico for concluding the presentation.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me well. I'm going to assume that you can, but do jump in and let me know if you can't. So yeah, thank you so much, Norman, for those slides, and Jiska for the introduction, and thank you for the invitation to present some of this project here. Yeah, I just wanted to pick up on some of the things that have come out of what Jiska has said, and also out of what Norman has said with regards to our specific project. And I just want to underline, first of all, actually, for us in this project, one of the things that has been absolutely key is actually the role of a co-production approach to this, and the emergence of the project, not from a sort of well, I guess, without wanting to be crass, but from a sort of preconceived notion of what we wanted to do and achieve, but actually was the result of some fairly interesting conversational processes, which were really co-production and focused on partnership and on looking at aligning the different priorities of all the different partners. And the project idea actually came out of a workshop which was partially funded by the GCRF, that took place in Plymouth in 2018, and where there were a few of us around the table, from UCT, from Exeter, from Innovate UK, from the municipalities of Polokwane, the municipality of Johannesburg, but also Zonke Energy attended, other companies attended. I remember Bbox, for example, was there as well. And it was just a very interesting space in which those conversations could happen. And the project really emerged from that. It didn't actually emerge from the formal sessions, so from sessions like this where presentations happened, but there was plenty of time given to the more informal interactions. And it's really been at the heart of the nature and the DNA of this project, the sort of mutual co-production of what we're doing. I also wanted to just to flesh out a little bit the involvement of Zonke Energy, which is our private sector partner, which is the project is very much focused on an experimental approach to the deployment of these microgrids in Qandu Qandu in Cape Town. And Zonke Energy is also a key part of that experimental approach. At the moment, they are very much a company at the experimental stage of development. They aim to be a utility working in off-grid informal contexts in cities. But at the moment, they're at the stage where they basically have 30 to 40 clients in Qandu Qandu. For example, I think to reach profitability, they need around 5,000. So they are not on board at the moment, in order to extract sort of profit, although they are of course benefiting from knowledge, benefiting from experience and engagement with the community. But they're also a key gatekeeper with the community for us. Through the project, we've hired a community relations manager who works in Qandu Qandu, and there is a plan over the next year or so to open up a Zonke Energy hub in the community as well, to not just look at the energy, but to also look at some of the other things that we're starting to do in terms of additionality, like the refrigeration. Another point I just wanted to highlight as well is obviously the project is focused on solar mini grids, and we've encountered quite a lot of interesting discussions, I think, around the problematics really of considering the roles of renewables and also solar in those off-grid spaces. And it's interesting that we've been encountering these problematics, but they've also been coming up in the literature quite a lot as well. So I'm thinking about not just solar, but infrastructural issues highlighted by, Monroe, Samara Kuhn, Charlotte Lemansky, who I think is on this phone call, etc. And some of those questions, I think, are really ethical questions in the context of, in South Africa, for example, this idea of providing mini grids in spaces where constitutionally, like Jiska was saying, constitutionally, energy access is assured by the Constitution, but it isn't assured in practice. And so there is this two-speed system, and there is this ethical question about the provision of in some ways, a lesser infrastructure through the microgrid in a city where obviously there is also the formal high-capacity grid, although very unstable at the moment, of course. So there are those ethical questions there, and also some ethical questions around the disequities or the production of inequalities, some of which are spatialized through our project. So we have had people asking to or exploring the idea of signing on to the microgrid, but they're simply located too far away from the solar towers to be able to benefit from the microgrid. So that introduces a sort of spatialized inequality. And there are questions, of course, around a microgrid that is run by private sector actors, NGO actors potentially as well. So these actors in delivering infrastructural services that in more formal spaces in South Africa are somewhat reliant on state institutions for delivery and sort of a set policy framework. So there are those questions, I think, that have arisen for us, and finally the question of permanence, or the issue of permanence, was issued, and there have been interesting sort of debates that we've had around the ways in which places like Qandu Qandu are represented in the policy literature, and in literature at a multiplicity of scales, like the municipal scale, the global sort of policy-making scales, etc. So, for example, when we selected Qandu Qandu, actually the initial idea was to identify and select a settlement with as few illegal or informal connections to the grid as possible in order to test these mini grids. But it was much more complex than that. So we ended up doing a fairly long survey and site selection of, and I think in the end we involved around 40 different settlements. Jiska and Norman can probably sort of correct me on that number. But there was an iterative process of sort of assessment of where we could and couldn't work, and we ended up with selecting Qandu Qandu. But the incredible diversity and complexity, which is not surprising, but which we found in the context of trying to think about mini grid installation, that diversity and complexity was really interesting. But then there are questions about, okay, how do you engage with that granular, complex context, whilst also connecting to broader issues around policy standards, etc., and whilst also understanding that some of these issues may stretch across those contexts. So I'll finish with this, but where are we going now? Like Jiska mentioned, at the moment we're trying to sort of place our mindset in terms of thinking beyond a single service focus. So the project that on mini grids is very much focused on mini grids and solar. At the moment, we've just started this Newton Fund Prize funded project where we're trying to include additionality to the mini grid, so upgrading the mini grids and towers, and trying to add refrigeration, but then not just focusing on the technology. So we're trying through another NGO called Story Room. We're trying to engage with local entrepreneurs, local women, to basically engage in business training and identifying business models for potentially using fridges and perhaps freezers as well, depending on what we can find with the technology, using them as productive use businesses. So based on these appliances, and thinking about the sort of sustainable business models and financing that could contribute to that. So that's kind of where we are at the moment. I don't want to speak for too long, so I'll leave it there. But thank you very much for again for inviting us to present.